For Reasons Wretched and Divine, by Freya Writer 24. Reading Part 2. Neither of them had made a move to try praying yet. Crowley was trying very hard to not think about God and talking to her again. Aziraphale was strangely self-conscious of attempting it in front of Crowley. It wasn't that he was embarrassed, per se, it was more that he was sympathetic, and his current worry was that Crowley might feel uncomfortable at the sight of an angel making a connection with God. Then a new worry came to him. "Crowley, do you think that, even if we don't use my circle, that upstairs might be able to listen in?" Crowley sucked in a long breath. "Maybe. Depends on what kind of setup they got going on." Oh dear. The night drew onwards, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Crowley's thumb continued to trace circles against Aziraphale's skin. Cars still occasionally swept by outside, and a light spattering of rain began to fall. Several minutes into this pondering, Aziraphale came up with an idea. It took him several minutes more to work up the courage to propose it. "Crowley," he began, trying to speak seriously without sounding too formal. "Remember when we were at Tadfield, at the air base, and I demanded you do something to stop what was happening, and you stopped time?" The ginger head bobbed, golden eyes absently following the motions of his own thumb. "Where were we, exactly, when you did that?" "I'm not sure what it's called," Crowley said slowly. "I think I've always named it the Sands of Time in my head, but I don't think it's anywhere really. Sort of a pocket dimension, I suppose." "And why did you take us there? Why didn't you just freeze time around us, like you did in Paris?" Now Crowley looked at him. "So the others couldn't see us, get to us." His mind wandered to distant thoughts of escape and safety, and his eyes glazed over. "It's not a permanent solution, Angel. We couldn't really stay there for any length of time. Or, well, not time, because it doesn't have any, that's the whole point. But you know, I can't hold it there forever." "I'm not asking you to. But I was just wondering, because—" Aziraphale lifted his free hand to move it gently through the air as he spoke, softly punctuating his words. "Well, if you did it because you wanted to hide us, well then, no one can see us there. No one besides God, I mean, and well, if you're looking to communicate with her, without anyone else seeing, then perhaps that's just the place to do it." The two looked at each other in the soft, cozy glow of the bookshop's warm lighting. "Maybe so," Crowley said eventually. His thumb had stopped moving against Aziraphale's hand. "It's just an idea, of course," the angel said, gently pulling his hand away and dancing it through the air in front of him. "I don't want to make you do anything difficult or dangerous for something we don't really even need to know, but—" "Even if it doesn't work, it's always nice to give the wings a stretch." "Yes," Aziraphale breathed, "that too." The preparation felt strange, given that there hadn't really been much of it last time. They made sure to close all the blinds in the bookshop, just in case. They tried to figure out how far apart they should stand so that there would be room to stretch their wings straight away. They talked about how they were going to do it. "What do we need to ask?" "If we're still connected, I suppose, she'll know what we mean. Probably better than we do." They looked at each other for a long moment. "Angel, you know this probably won't work." He said it gently, with as much tenderness as he could muster. God, in Crowley's experience, wasn't the most receptive to questions, generally speaking. At least this time they weren't questioning her, or really anything from a moral standpoint. But he still felt a response was unlikely. "I know." The reply was wistful, and for a moment the two considered the same possibility, that this may be the last time either of them asked for guidance from God, ever referred to her in any terms more than a passing reference, believed in her as anything more than a neutral, distant onlooker, who cared nothing about the individuals, and everything about the entertainment. Aziraphale shook himself out of his thoughts. "Let's do it." The pair separated, moving between bookshelves to get far enough apart that in the other place they would have the full range of movement for their wings. They had nothing with them this time, no flaming sword, No sunglasses or parts of a burnt-up Bentley. No 11-year-old Antichrist who was so fundamentally human. It was just them, and base hope. Crowley summoned all his strength, all the anger and fear and nervousness and questions, and pushed them into a place inside of him that he knew had the most power, the most capacity for miracles. Then he threw open his arms and opened up his heart, and catapulted the two of them into the sands of time. There was nothing quite like the feeling of being able to stretch out wings that had felt they had been trapped away for all eternity. It had only been a few months since the last time, but they hadn't been able to really enjoy it then, so now was the moment to feel it. Both of them had gone into this plane of existence with their eyes shut, and kept them that way for a while, reveling in just the sensation of being able to breathe fully, to reach fully, stretch every fiber of this semi-earthly form. Aziraphale could feel every feather shift against and apart from each other, a constant folding and unfolding as he brushed his wings through their full range of movements, high and low, forward and backward, and outwards, always free. Crowley opened his eyes first, ever on the lookout. His gold eyes focused, and he froze. He froze because for a second he couldn't understand what he was looking at. He froze because for a moment he didn't comprehend the being before him. He froze because for a fraction of the time that this place didn't have, he was certain that God herself was here and had orchestrated this and was smiling. Because in front of him was Aziraphale, beautiful, kind Aziraphale, and his eyes were shut in the ecstasy of freedom, and his wings, oh Lord, his wings. They were spread out wide, fluttering gently, and they were gorgeous. Where before there had been feathers of pure white, shining brightly as his own had been so long ago, now there was color. A soft cream mottled with warm brown, and flecked with patches of brilliant sky blue. He had the color scheme of his clothes, of a barn owl soaring through a clear spring sky, of everything comforting and friendly in his bookshop. His wings were so stunning, and they were so fundamentally, purely, distinctly Aziraphale. Then soft eyes opened and widened, and there was a gasp of captivated awe. Oh, Crowley! Each had forgotten their own wings, but now Crowley looked up and brought them round and felt his mouth fall open further still. His wings had changed too. Aziraphale couldn't help but stare. Crowley's wings were still dark as night, but that night was no longer black and empty. It was vast and colorful and filled with every shade of darkness imaginable. There were reds, greens, purples, blues, every color of the rainbow and more. An iridescence scattered amongst the deepest dark of the night, speckled over with tiny dots of pure white. They were incredible. An enchanting map of the nebulae Crowley had built from nothing. They were gorgeous and perfect, and so effortlessly distilled the essence of Crowley. And that was when Aziraphale noticed his own wings, and the two of them stood in silent amazement at their transformations. "Well, I suppose that answers that question," the angel said weakly, after what could have been hours or years. But no, he wasn't an angel anymore. He was something else, as his wings illustrated. They both were. "But how?" croaked out the no longer a demon. "But it hurt last time. It burned. How could we not know?" "We didn't fall, my dear." Aziraphale's voice was gentle and sincere, and Crowley's golden eyes latched onto his as an anchor in a world that made no sense. "What hurt was the falling, and we didn't. I think we flew." In an instant they were together again, their hands on each other's shoulders, steadying themselves, holding each other up. Crowley looked so lost, so confused, and Aziraphale reached out, lifting a soft hand to cup his cheek instead. Those gorgeous golden eyes, irises expanded to overtake the whites, stared into Aziraphale's soul. Why? The word fell from his lips like a child's, a question millennia couldn't answer. Aziraphale reached out his thumb to wipe away the unbidden tear that had escaped from his best friend's eye. Then he took a step to close the distance between them, and rested their foreheads together. Because we made our own side. They couldn't stay forever, but they did stay longer. Eventually they broke apart, brushed through the colors of their own wings, learning their new patterns, and then they asked, haltingly, in reverent awe, to touch each other's. And there was an eternity of bliss held in the sensation of those hands through his feathers, in the gentle way he murmured at their beauty. They never prayed in the end. They had gotten their answer. They were not of heaven nor of hell, but they were something new and entirely different. And it was a gift, they felt, one that should not be questioned, one that should be honored. So in the end they left, went back to the bookshop, and were left breathless, laughter in their eyes, all joy and hope and pleasure, and the memory of colors and textures of each other's wings in their minds. Had they asked, there would have been no response. God does not get involved in answering prayers anymore, if she ever did. But had there been a response, it would have been this. Yes, you are of your own side now. You are something new. Yes, you are not connected to hell or heaven. They cannot monitor you now. Yes, you can still perform your miracles, but they do not come from either of those places, and they never did. They are from me. And perhaps they would have learnt something else, too. Perhaps they would have learnt that, in amongst the various seismic shifts that happened, one of them, the one that made their wings bright with the colors of their souls, had made sure their bodies were protected. They never would dare to test it, but there was the possibility that, during their flight, the primary weapons of above and below were muted. Perhaps hellfire wouldn't burn his earfell quite as thoroughly anymore. Perhaps holy water would cause Crowley only a slight stinging sensation. Perhaps heaven and hell spheres of no destruction were now a reality. Perhaps now, nothing on earth or beyond it could tear their souls away from this place, or each other.